Final Destination, one of my favorite franchises ever, especially in the horror category. Well, my latest video was about Final Destination Bloodlines and everything about that. But I decided to make another video and decided to talk about Final Destination even more. And in this video, we're going to talk about why Final Destination 4 is considered the worst movie in the franchise. We're going to go through every single part of it, and I'm going to explain everything about it and how I feel about it at the end. So let's get into it. The first thing on the list is the premonition. Obviously, our main character in Final Destination has a premonition in which they stop it, and then everybody dies one by one because they were supposed to die in that incident. And Final Destination in general is the premonition. How do we see these characters die in the premonition first? How the accident happens, and then how do they stop it? And usually, the best thing about Final Destination when they do the premonitions is based on somebody's fear. And in most of the Final Destinations, everybody's fear is kind of valid. In Final Destination 1, it's Flight 180. It's an airplane. A lot of people are afraid of airplanes and fear that they're going to crash when they're on one. Final Destination 2 was the pileup on a highway. People are always scared of highway accidents. Something can happen and then everything could just spiral into you becoming a part of the car accident. A lot of people fear that. Final Destination 3 was Devil's Flight, a roller coaster. A lot of people have fear of roller coasters. They're scared to get on it because they think something bad is going to happen and can cause a death. Final Destination 4 was the McKinley racetrack, and Final Destination 5 was a bridge. A lot of people don't like crossing bridges because they're scared of a large body of water that is under them. If that bridge collapses, they're going inside that water. A lot of people aren't really scared of racetracks. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, a car accident could happen, but the realistically in racetrack and in NASCAR or anything like that, usually when car accidents happen, a wheel doesn't come out and flying towards you and flying over the gate and hitting you in the face. You know what I mean? Stuff like that really doesn't happen. Now, can something really bad happen where the people in the cars get damaged and messed up and could possibly die? Yes. And maybe some explosions? Most likely not, but it's not out of the realm of possibilities. But it being the incident where everybody in the crowd dies, it's very unlikely. So nobody was really scared of a premonition of a racetrack. Nobody is very scared. Out of all of these, most likely the people who may have a fear the most are the airplanes. So I think that's the weakest one out of all five of the movies so far. We'll see what Bloodlines takes. The next one is the story. Now, obviously, Final Destination has the same formula. Somebody has a premonition, and everybody dies based on how they were in the accident. We know this already. And these visions are pretty bad. They basically give him hints on what happens to the next person, how they're going to die. But the problem is, they're so poorly made. See, about around this time, Final Destination 4 came out around the mid 2000s, where everybody brought back the 3D aspects, but the 3Ds were fucking terrible. And basically, almost all the movies, besides like maybe Avatar, the 3D was pretty awful. Like the early 2000 3D was way better than the mid 2000s, which is crazy to me. Anyways, so around that time, that's when they wanted to do the 3D aspect of everything. So they use his visions when he's sleeping to use that as a way to be like, oh, this how this person might die. Look at this object coming at you, and that was people found pretty corny and pretty like weird, which is understandable. I mean, nobody really wants to see stuff like coming at you and being like, oh, this person might die because of this and that. So a lot of people didn't really like that. Next is the characters. A lot of people didn't really like the acting in the movie. They didn't really like the characters and how the acting was. I don't have any problem with the actors themselves. I think they were just given a poorly written script. So it's really not their fault, but a lot of people use their acting and how everything was based off, which is like, I get it. Main characters are Nick, who's our main protagonist, who has the premonition, his girlfriend Lori, his best friend Hunt, Lori's best friend Janet, racist Carter, Sam, who was the mother of these two kids, where she put in tampons as freaking to cover their ears for the racing track, Andy, and George. Now, the people really didn't like was Hunt and Janet. Let me circle them. Hunt and Janet, because both of them are really not likable characters. Hunt is just a douchebag throughout the whole movie, which is fine, but he shows no emotion ever when somebody dies. Like, this is a big situation. People are dying consistently, and you're on that list. And instead of being a little worried about it, he's like, well, if I'm gonna die, I'm just gonna go get laid because that's what I do. You know what I mean? It's like, and then Janice just annoying. It's like she gets worried about the whole death thing, but also she's very mean and ignorant and just like laid back about it. And then she gets mad at some points where even Nick is like, yo, you're gonna die. And she's like, no, I want to watch this movie. Because there's a part near the end of the movie where Laurie and Janet go to see a movie because they think they already cheated death. So they're like, oh, we're gonna go watch a movie. And then Nick comes and is like, yo, like, no, you guys are die, we gotta go. And Jenna's like, no, I'm tired. I'm going to sit here and watch this movie because I was meant to be here. So people didn't really like Janet for that because she really didn't give a fuck either. Carter was a racist, so nobody really liked him. I didn't like him either, but he was going to die, so really, really didn't give a fuck. Sam was fine. I mean, her death was pretty legit. It was like a Final Destination ish kind of thing where there was a whole bunch of small incidents happening throughout it. And we're like, how the hell is she going to die? Is the fan ceiling going to chop her head off while she's at the hair salon? Is the cutting of her hair? Is something going to happen with the scissors? Is the flat iron going to mess up anything? It was like so many moving pieces. Like, how is she going to die? That was a Final Destination type, dying. But Sam was a fine character. Nobody really cared. It wasn't really big of a deal. Andy wasn't big of a deal either. Doesn't matter. His death was pretty weird too. It was very CGI. It was awful. So yeah, these characters wasn't really like cared for. The biggest three was Nick, George, and Laurie. And this also goes back to the aspect of the story. George is the only one that you can really feel like that's a real character and has real emotions and has a legit reason as to why he is who he is. He has the only developing story in the whole movie, which is a big problem. Now, Nick and Laurie, they do feel like a real couple, but at the same time, they don't really have anything. They don't bring anything very interesting to the point where I'm like, oh my god, I hope they make it out. They deserve, to be happy together. They don't have any emotions that change about them or no character development, if you ask me personally. A lot of people also don't like that. George is the only person that has some sort of like thing. Damn, my marker's walking out. The only person who has some sort of situation going on. He's having an alcohol problem. His wife and his kid passed away because of his alcohol addiction, so he's trying to get rid of that. He's even reading a book in his house about it, trying to stop. And then he blames himself and everything. He has that guilt, and then when he finds out he's on death's list, he's okay with it because he feels like he deserves it. He tries to do everything. He takes pills. He tries to end his life. That is a true character. He's having a human emotion where he's like, maybe this is really meant for me. This is my time. And so that was a big thing, but he didn't really get that much screen time to actually fully develop. And then his death is so sudden that it was just like, what was the point of this whole thing? So that's been the whole thing. Also, the characters have no real character development at all. Everything feels all over the place, and it feels like the script was just like, all right, let's give George something, but then let's just quickly kill him off. It was just like, it wasn't very, very well done. All right, I had to switch to my blue marker because my black one was running out. So the biggest one was also the deaths. Final Destination is all about the deaths, how we go about it. Not only is the story important, but in most of the Final Destination franchise, the story is just there as like a backup, but the death is mostly the most important thing. How are these characters going to die? That's the big conclusion that we get. Are they going to survive, and how do they die if all of them die? This has had one of the lamest deaths, especially for our final characters, the most important ones. George, Nick, Lori, and Janet. The big thing with that one is there was so many different endings that they had. Like one of the endings was the mall premonition was an actual real thing that actually happens. Also a one where Nick actually sacrifices himself to save everybody in the mall, and then Lori and Janet die because they're like, oh, he saved us all, and now the chain is broken, and then next thing you know, a chain literally breaks and something falls on them, and that's how the movie ends. So that's also pretty terrible. People didn't like those, situations when they found out those were like the alternate endings that they were gonna go with. So the ones that they did go with was probably even worse. In the deaths, I already spoke about George. George immediately dies from a ambulance trunk just quickly just hitting him. So all that character development was nothing. Nick does go and save Lori and Janet from the movie theater incident at the mall, so everybody was saved. But the ending on how they die, when all three of them are in the cafe and a truck comes and hit them, we don't even see them die. We see uh CGI versions, or we see like their skeletons and how they die through their skeletons, not them actually dying, which is kind of boring. Like everybody else was pretty awesome to see, except these three. These are the main ones that survive. The fact that they die from a truck incident that hits them in the cafe, but we don't even get to see them really die. We just see their fucking bodies through their skulls, seeing how they die. Like, oh damn, he broke his jaw. Look at the way, like, it's so rushed, and it's just like another way just to get some 3D aspect into it. And that was really, really fucking terrible. The fact that the main character died with the other two in the most lamest way possible is also one of the big reasons why people did not like this movie. Okay, so here is the final question. Do I think Final Destination 4 is the worst Final Destination in the franchise so far? Yes. I hate this movie. I don't hate the actors. I think the actors did a fine job. But once again, I think it's just the script that they were given that was terrible. But overall, the movie itself, it felt rushed. It looked very bad. The CGI was horrible. Everything was just, it felt so bland and just like odd to watch. And mind you, this was supposed to be originally the Final Destination movie. Literally, it was titled The Final Destination. But then they realized how fucking terrible this movie was, and like, oh, we can't end the franchise like that. So then they made Final Destination 5, which is one of my favorites. If you ask me, I think that's the best story development. Is the Final Destination 5. I think they had the best story and the best characters, if you were to ask me. But Final Destination 4 is fucking awful. Now, like I said, I don't hate the actors as much as everybody else does, but everything else was fucking awful. I think the premonition was bad. I don't think the double premonition was necessarily needed. I don't like the alternate endings that they were thinking about, and I didn't even like the ending that they went with. So none of this felt like right. And the 3D, oh my god. I hate 3D in the 2010s because this came out, I think, around like 09 ish or whatever. The 2010s 3D was fucking terrible. They felt like it was so forced. Like it was not great at all, especially for horror movies. Like the 3D Saw, I didn't like that at all. The movie was fine, but the 3D aspect is just, it's not cool. It wasn't great for me. And I was around like 10 and around that time. I think, yeah, '09. I think '09 Final Destination 4 came out around that time. I was like 9 years old and I fucking couldn't stand it. 3D was just not my thing anymore. When I was younger, 3D was like Spy Kids, bro. Spy Kids was top tier. 3D Spy Kids and Shark Boy Lava Girl, those were 3D fucking movies and they were fantastic. How the hell the advancement of 3D going into the mid 2000s was fucking awful, I will never know. It just felt so corny. And when the original Premonition happened on the racetrack, it felt so like cartoonish. Like some of the noises that they made was so like cringy and felt like a cartoon. Like one of the deaths, Sam, when they have the premonition in Final Destination 4, Samantha, the mom, when she dies in the premonition, she gets hit by an engine that pops out from one of the cars. And when it happens, it makes such a cartoon noise when it hits the impact. It hits like a doing, like it's so weird. It was so odd. This felt like a fucking parody of a Final Destination movie. So overall, I do think this is the worst Final Destination movie. Hopefully, we'll never get a movie like this ever again. I'm praying that Bloodlines is fucking fantastic because I will forever rank this as the worst Final Destination movie. What do you guys think? Do you guys enjoy Final Destination 4? Is this your number one? Let me know in the comments. And also let me know if you want me to do a rankings of all the Final Destinations or if you want me to wait until Final Destination Bloodlines comes out to put a full ranking video. Once again, this has been the Slasher Bachelor, and I'll see you in my next video. I love you guys.